morning sun rose over New Busan, painting the colony's metal buildings in shades of orange and gold. Kang Taemin stood outside his small clinic watching the farmers head to their fields. Life here was simple, quiet. That was exactly what he wanted after the war. His daughter Hana ran past him chasing one of the colony's cats. Her laughter filled the air. Taemin smiled. She was 8 years old now, growing so fast. Sometimes when he looked at her, he saw her mother's face. The pain of that loss had dulled over 3 years, but it never truly went away. "Papa, can we go to the market later?" Hana called out. "Mrs. Kim said she would teach me how to make rice cakes." "After I finish at the clinic," Taemin replied. "I have patients this morning." Hana nodded and went back to playing. Taemin returned inside, preparing for another ordinary day. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. Around noon, the sky darkened. Not with clouds, but with ships. Massive vessels that blotted out the sun. The entire colony stopped and stared upward. These were not human ships. The radio in Taemin's clinic crackled to life. "All residents remain calm. We have visitors. The Althean royal fleet is making an emergency stop for repairs. They mean us no harm. Repeat, remain calm." Taemin had heard of the Altheans. Everyone had. They ruled dozens of star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. They possessed strange mental powers that humans could barely understand, and they thought of humans as interesting but primitive creatures like children playing with toys. The colony administrator, a nervous man named Director Cho, spent the afternoon in frantic communication with the Althean ships. Taemin watched from his clinic window as several Althean shuttles landed in the main plaza. The aliens were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. They moved with perfect coordination, their faces calm and unreadable. By evening, the entire colony knew why the Altheans had stopped. Their princess was sick, very sick, and their doctors could not help her. Taemin was eating dinner with Hana when someone knocked on his door. He opened it to find Director Cho, sweating despite the cool evening air. "Dr. Kang, they want to see you." "The Altheans. They asked for our best doctor." Cho wrung his hands together. "Please, you have to help them. If the princess dies here, it could mean trouble for the whole colony." Taemin looked back at Hana, who was watching with wide eyes. He did not want to leave her, but he had taken an oath long ago to help those who needed him. "I will go," he said quietly. "But Hana comes with me to the plaza. I want her close." Director Cho nodded quickly. Of course. The Althean flagship was unlike anything Taemin had ever seen. The walls glowed with soft light. The air tasted clean and fresh. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting and changing. Hana held his hand tightly as they walked through the corridors, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. They were led to a large room that smelled of flowers and something else, something alien. In the center of the room lay a girl. She looked about 10 years old, though Taemin knew Althean aging was different from humans. Her blue skin was pale, almost gray. She was unconscious, her chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. Around her stood several Althean doctors, their faces showing the first emotion Taemin had seen from them: worry. And beside the bed stood the queen herself. Queen Valara was tall and regal, dressed in flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid silver. Her eyes were a deep purple color, and they fixed on Taemin with an intensity that made him want to step back. But he held his ground. "You are the human doctor," she said. Her voice was like music, but there was steel underneath. "Can you help my daughter?" Taemin approached the bed slowly. He had treated many species during the war, but never an Althean. He pulled out his medical scanner, an old human device that probably looked like a toy to these people. But it was what he knew, what he trusted. He ran the scanner over the princess. The readings made his heart sink. He had seen this before years ago during the war. A human soldier had suffered from it. The condition was called neural cascade failure. The nervous system was destroying itself in a feedback loop. "I have seen this before," Taemin said slowly. "But that was in a human. I do not know if the treatment would work on your daughter." One of the Althean doctors stepped forward. His name was Physician Melor, and he spoke with barely controlled desperation. "We know what it is. We know how to treat it. But we cannot." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked. Melor's face twisted with frustration. "The treatment requires constant psionic stabilization. One of us must connect our mind to hers and manually regulate her neural patterns. But the pain," he paused. "The pain is transferred to the healer. Every moment of her suffering becomes our suffering. Our species cannot tolerate such pain. We lose consciousness within minutes. We have tried. All of us have tried. Taman understood. The Altheans were advanced, powerful, but they had limits. Evolution had made them sensitive to certain types of pain. It was not weakness. It was simply how they were made. And you think a human could do it? Taman asked. Humans do not have natural psionic ability, Malor said. But we have a device, a neural crown. It would allow you to channel the energy needed for the treatment. But it would also mean you would feel everything she feels, and you would need to maintain it for 8 hours, maybe more. 8 hours of another person's pain. Not just pain, but the alien agony of a nervous system tearing itself apart. Taman looked at the princess. She was so young. In her unconscious face, he saw every child he had tried to save during the war. He saw his own daughter. How long does she have? He asked quietly. Without treatment, she will die within 2 days, Melor said. With partial treatment, she might live, but suffer brain damage. Only complete, uninterrupted treatment will save her fully. Queen Valara spoke then, her voice soft but clear. I would not ask this of you, human. I would not wish such suffering on any being. But you are my last hope. Name your price. Anything in my power to give, it is yours. Taman looked at Hana, who stood by the door with Director Cho, his little girl who had already lost her mother. If he did this, he might not come back the same person. The psychological damage could be permanent. But he looked at the princess again, dying slowly, and he knew he had no choice. This was what he was, a doctor, a man who saved lives no matter the cost. I have one condition, Taman said. If my mind breaks during the procedure, promise me that my daughter will be cared for. Promise me she will be safe and happy. Queen Valara's purple eyes softened. For the first time, she looked not like a powerful ruler, but like a mother who understood what he was offering. I swear it, she said. On my crown, on my empire, on everything I hold sacred. Your daughter will be protected as if she were my own. Taman nodded slowly. He walked over to Hana and knelt down in front of her. Papa has to help the sick girl, he said gently. It might take a long time and it might be hard. But I will come back to you. I promise. Hana's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded bravely. You always help people, Papa. That is who you are. He hugged her tightly, then stood up. He looked at Queen Valara and the gathered Althean doctors. Show me what I need to do, he said. The preparation room was cold and sterile. Taman sat in a chair while physician Mellor explained the procedure. Around them, other Althean medical staff moved silently, setting up equipment that hummed with barely contained energy. This is the neural crown, Mellor said, holding up a device that looked like a circlet made of twisted silver wire. Small crystals were embedded in it, glowing with a faint blue light. It will connect your mind to the princess's nervous system. You will be able to channel healing energy through your thoughts, but there is a price. The pain, Taman said quietly. Yes, the pain. Mellor's face was grim. I will not lie to you, Dr. Kang. What you are about to experience is beyond anything your species has likely encountered. The princess's nerves are firing in chaotic patterns. Every one of those misfires will register in your brain as if they were happening to you. Burning, tearing, crushing all at once and all the time. Taman's hands clenched on the armrests of the chair. Can you give me something for the pain? Some kind of drug? We tried that with our own healers, another doctor said. Pain medication dulls the mental connection. You would not be able to maintain the healing bond. You must be fully conscious and aware or it will not work, Mellor continued. The procedure requires 8 hours minimum. You must manually stabilize each section of her nervous system, one by one. If you stop even for a few minutes, the cascade will restart. All your work would be undone and the princess would die. 8 hours, Taman repeated. He had endured pain before. During the war, he had been wounded, tortured even. But 8 hours of constant agony? Could any human survive that with their mind intact? There is another concern, Mellor said carefully. Humans have never used psionic technology before. We do not know how your brain will react. There is a possibility of permanent psychological damage, trauma, memory loss, personality changes. We simply do not know. The room fell silent. Taman could hear his own heartbeat, fast and loud in his ears. Has anyone ever done this before, he asked. Has any non-Althean attempted this treatment? No, Mellor admitted. You would be the first. Taman closed his eyes. He thought of Hana waiting in another room. He thought of his wife, dead 3 years now from an illness he could not cure. He thought of all the soldiers he had lost during the war, the ones he could not save no matter how hard he tried. This time he could save someone. It would cost him. Maybe cost him everything, but he could do it. I need to see my daughter first, Taman said. Before we start. Milor nodded and led him to a smaller room. Hana sat there with Director Cho, playing with a small toy one of the Althean crew members had given her. When she saw her father, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. Papa, are you scared? She asked, looking up at him with her mother's eyes. Yes, he admitted. He never lied to her. I am very scared. But you will do it anyway, Hana said. It was not a question. Yes. Because that is what brave people do, Hana said seriously. They do the right thing even when they are scared. Taman smiled despite everything. When did you get so wise? I have a very good teacher, Hana said. She hugged him again. I will wait for you, Papa, however long it takes. Taman kissed the top of her head. I love you, Hana. Never forget that. I love you too. He left before he could change his mind. Director Cho promised to stay with Hana the entire time. Queen Valara herself had assigned guards to watch over her. His daughter would be safe. Now he had to make sure the princess would be safe too. Back in the medical bay, they had moved Princess Isul to a specialized bed surrounded by monitoring equipment. Taman was positioned in a chair beside her, close enough to touch her hand. The neural crown sat on a table nearby, waiting. Once we begin, you cannot remove the crown, Melor explained. If you do, the feedback shock could kill you both. You must endure until the end. Do you understand? I understand, Taman said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. Queen Valara entered the room. She looked at Taman for a long moment, her purple eyes unreadable. Why are you doing this? She asked suddenly. You do not know my daughter. You owe us nothing. Your species and mine have barely interacted. Why risk your mind, your life for a stranger? Taman thought about his answer carefully. When I became a doctor, I took an oath. To help those who suffer. To save lives when I can. Your daughter is suffering. I can save her life. That is enough. That is not enough, Valara said sharply. Words on a page, an oath taken years ago? That cannot be enough to face what you are about to face. Taman met her eyes. You asked why? The true answer is simple. I have a daughter. If Hana were lying there dying and a stranger could save her but had to suffer terribly to do it, I would pray that stranger would have the courage. I would hope that somewhere in the universe there was someone who cared more about saving a child than about their own pain. Valara's expression softened. You humans are strange creatures, weak in so many ways, yet? Taman asked. Yet perhaps strong in ways we have forgotten, she finished quietly. Malor cleared his throat. We should begin. Every moment we delay, the princess's condition worsens. Taman nodded. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Then another, preparing himself as much as he could for what was coming. Melor lifted the neural crown and carefully placed it on Taman's head. It felt cold against his skin. The crystals began to glow brighter. Relax your mind, Melor instructed. Let the connection form naturally. In 3, 2, 1, the world exploded into pain. It was not like being burned or cut. It was worse. It was every nerve in his body screaming at once. It was fire and ice and electricity and knives all at the same time. His back arched. His mouth opened in a soundless scream. Breathe. Melor's voice came from far away. You must breathe and focus. Find the pattern in the chaos. Pattern? There was no pattern, only pain. Only endless, terrible pain that consumed his entire world. But somewhere in the pain, Taman found his training. Years of medical school. Years of battlefield surgery. Years of discipline. He forced his mind to focus, to see beyond the agony, and there, like a twisted symphony, he could sense it, the princess's nervous system firing in random bursts. Each burst sent a new wave of pain through him, but between the bursts he could feel the moments of calm, the spaces where healing could take root. I see it, Taman gasped. Sweat already poured down his face. His whole body trembled. Good, Melor said. Now you must stabilize each neural cluster. Start with the primary cortex. Guide the energy with your thoughts, shape it, direct it. It was like trying to hold water with his bare hands. The healing energy wanted to scatter, to dissipate, And every second he worked, the pain grew worse. The princess's suffering became his suffering. Minutes felt like hours. His vision blurred. Blood vessels burst in his eyes, turning the whites red. His hands clenched so hard his nails cut into his palms. First cluster stabilized, Malor announced. 7 more to go. Dr. Kang, can you continue? Could he? Taman did not know. But he thought of Hana waiting for him. He thought of this young girl who deserved to live. He thought of his oath. Yes, he whispered. I can continue. And the real test began. 1 hour had passed. Taman's world had narrowed to a single point of existence, pain and the desperate need to push through it. His body was failing. Blood dripped from his nose. His muscles spasmed uncontrollably, but his mind somehow remained focused on the task. Second cluster stabilizing, he heard Malor say. The word seemed to come from another universe. Vitals holding. Dr. Kang, you are doing the impossible. Taman could not respond. Every ounce of energy went into maintaining the connection, into channeling the healing power through the neural crown. The princess's nervous system fought him at every turn, chaos trying to overwhelm the order he was slowly, painfully imposing. In the observation area above the medical bay, Queen Valara watched in silence. She had ruled for over a century. She had seen wars, diplomatic triumphs, and technological marvels. But she had never seen anything like this. The human doctor sat rigid in his chair, his body clearly breaking down, yet he continued. No Althean could have lasted this long. It was impossible. Yet here it was, happening before her eyes. How is he still conscious? She asked one of the attending physicians. We do not know, Your Majesty, the physician admitted. By all our models, he should have collapsed after 30 minutes. An hour should have killed him or driven him permanently insane. But he continues. Human stubbornness, Valara murmured. But it was more than that, and she knew it. This was something deeper. This was will made manifest. Down in the medical bay, Taman entered the 2nd hour. The pain had become so constant that it almost seemed normal now. Almost. His mind began to play tricks on him. He saw his wife standing beside him, her face sad but proud. He blinked and she was gone. 3rd cluster, Melor reported. Stabilization at 40%. Hold steady, doctor. Hold steady. Such simple words for such an impossible task. Taman's hands shook violently now. He could taste blood in his mouth. But the princess's neural patterns were beginning to show improvement. Slowly, so slowly, the chaos was giving way to order. Talk to me, Taman whispered, please. Give me something to focus on. Malor understood. What would you like to know? The princess. Tell me about her. Malor's voice softened. Princess Isolde is brilliant. At her age, she already shows mastery of advanced psionics. She loves to study alien cultures, especially human literature. She made the queen bring 36 human books on this journey. Despite the agony, Taman managed something like a smile. A girl who loved books. Like Hana. She is kind, another doctor added. She insists on learning the names of every crew member. She thanks them for their service. The crew would die for her. Then I will not let her die, Taman said through gritted teeth. The 3rd hour was hell itself. Taman's body began to shut down in places. Circulation failed in his extremities. His fingers turned blue. Medical staff surrounded him, trying to keep him alive even as he worked to save the princess. We need to stop, one doctor said urgently. His body cannot take much more. No, Taman gasped. Do not stop. I can endure. Dr. Kang and Melor began. Do not stop. Taman's voice cracked with desperation and pain. If we stop now, we have to start over. She will die. I can endure. I must endure. Melor looked at Queen Valara through the observation window. She gave a single slight nod. They would continue. By the 4th hour, Taman had stopped feeling his body entirely. All sensation had been consumed by the neural connection. He existed only as consciousness, suspended in an ocean of pain, fighting to create islands of stability in the princess's nervous system. He began to hallucinate more vividly. He saw the battlefield where he had served during the war. Wounded soldiers crying out for help. Some he had saved. Too many he had lost. Their faces swam before his eyes, accusing and grateful in equal measure. I am sorry, he whispered to the ghosts. I tried so hard. 4th cluster stabilized, Melor announced. His voice trembled with awe. Halfway there, doctor. You are halfway there. Halfway. 4 more hours. Taman wanted to laugh, but he had no breath for it. 4 hours might as well be 4 years, 4 lifetimes. But he thought of Hana. He thought of her smile, her laughter, her bright eyes. He thought of her saying, "They do the right thing even when they are scared." He could not fail her. He would not fail this child. The 5th hour brought a strange clarity. The pain did not lessen, but Taman found himself rising above it somehow. His consciousness expanded, and he could sense the princess's mind more clearly now. She was dreaming, trapped in a nightmare of her own body's rebellion. He could feel her fear, her confusion. "It is all right," Taman thought at her, pushing the message through the neural connection. "You are safe, I am here. You will live." Did she hear him? He thought maybe she did. The pattern of her neural chaos shifted slightly, as if responding to his presence. "5th cluster stabilizing," Milor said. "Dr. Kang, your neural patterns are showing extreme stress, but also adaptation. Your brain is learning to process the pain differently. Remarkable." The human brain, Taman thought distantly. Evolution had made it adaptable, able to survive impossible situations by changing, adjusting, enduring. Right now his brain was rewiring itself on the fly, finding new pathways to handle the overwhelming input. It would leave scars. He knew that. He would never be quite the same person after this. But he would be alive, and so would the princess. The 6th hour arrived. Queen Valara had not moved from her position in the observation area. She stood like a statue, watching the human doctor sacrifice himself piece by piece for her daughter. Around her, members of her court had gathered. Word had spread through the ship. They watched in silence, witnessing something none of them had thought possible. "He makes us look weak," one noble muttered. "No," Valara said quietly. "He shows us that strength comes in many forms. We thought ourselves superior because of our gifts, our technology. But this human has something we lack. The ability to choose suffering for another's sake and not break." 6th cluster complete, Milor reported. "2 more, Dr. Kang, 2 more and you are done." Taman barely heard. He was deep in the work now, his entire being focused on the delicate task of neural stabilization. His hands had stopped shaking, not because the pain had lessened, but because he had transcended his physical form. He was pure will now, pure purpose. The 7th hour was agony beyond description. Even his newfound mental state could not fully protect him. He felt his mind beginning to crack at the edges, stress fractures forming in his psyche, but he held on. He had to hold on. He saw his wife again, clearer this time. She sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "You are doing so well," she said in the voice he had loved. "I am so proud of you. Hana will be proud too." "I miss you," Taman whispered. "I know, but you must live. Our daughter needs you. This princess needs you. Be strong a little longer, my love." And then she was gone, and Taman was alone again with the pain. 7th cluster stabilized, Milor's voice shook. "1 more. Just 1 more, Dr. Kang. 1 more." The final cluster. The deepest, most damaged part of the princess's nervous system. The pain from this one would be the worst of all. Taman gathered himself. Everything he had left, every scrap of will and determination, he focused it all on this final task. The 8th hour began. The pain was indescribable. It was dying, slowly and terribly. It was every nightmare made real. Taman's mind screamed, but his body had no voice left. Blood ran from his ears now. His heart rhythm was dangerously erratic. "We are losing him," someone shouted. "Hold on, doctor," Milor urged. 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes. 5 minutes. An eternity. A heartbeat. Taman pushed through. He was beyond pain now, beyond consciousness, beyond anything except the task. The final neural cluster began to stabilize. Pattern emerging from chaos. Order from disorder. Life from death. "Stabilizing, stabilizing," Milor's voice rose with excitement. "Stable, complete stabilization. All clusters are holding. Remove the crown." "Now," someone ordered. Gentle hands lifted the neural crown from Taman's head. The connection severed instantly. For a moment, the absence of pain was so shocking that Taman could not process it. Then darkness rushed up to claim him and he collapsed forward. Medical staff caught him before he hit the floor. Queen Valara rushed from the observation area, her composure finally breaking. "Is he alive?" she demanded. "Yes," Milor said, checking Taman's vital signs with shaking hands. His body is in severe shock and the psychological trauma is extensive, but he is alive. And your majesty, Milord turned to the princess's bed. Your daughter's neural patterns are stable and normalizing. She will make a full recovery. Queen Valara looked at her daughter, breathing easily now, color returning to her skin. Then she looked at the unconscious human doctor who had given everything to save her. Take him to the best recovery room we have, she ordered. He is to receive the finest care we can provide. And someone bring his daughter here. When he wakes, he should see her first. As they carried Taman away, the gathered Altheans stood in silence. They had witnessed a human do the impossible. And in doing so, he had changed something fundamental in how they viewed humanity. The weak, they realized, were sometimes the strongest of all. Taman woke to soft light and the sound of gentle breathing. For a moment, he could not remember where he was or what had happened. Then the memories came flooding back, and with them a deep ache that seemed to come from his very soul. Papa? He turned his head, which took more effort than it should have. Hana sat in a chair beside his bed, her small hand holding his. Her eyes were red from crying, but she smiled when she saw him wake. Hana, he whispered. His throat was dry and raw. You slept for 3 days, Hana said. The queen said you needed to rest, that you did something amazing. 3 days. Taman tried to sit up but found he could not. His body felt like it belonged to someone else, weak, fragile. The princess? He managed to ask. She is fine, a new voice said. Taman turned to see Physician Mellor entering the room. The Althean doctor looked tired but relieved. Princess Isul made a complete recovery. Her neural patterns are perfect. You saved her life, Dr. Kang. Taman closed his eyes and let out a breath he did not know he was holding. She lived. That was all that mattered. How badly am I damaged? He asked quietly. Mellor hesitated. Your body will recover fully with time. A few weeks of rest, perhaps. But your mind, he paused. You suffered severe psychological trauma. Memory formation may be affected. You might experience nightmares, flashbacks. Some form of stress disorder is likely. We have specialists who can help, but full recovery will take months, maybe years. But I am still me, Taman said. It was not a question. Yes, Mellor confirmed. You are still you, damaged but not broken. Somehow, despite everything, your core self remained intact. Another impossibility you have achieved. Over the next few days, Taman's strength slowly returned. He could sit up, then stand, then walk short distances. Hana stayed by his side constantly, reading to him or telling him stories about the Althean ship and the kind crew members who had entertained her while he slept. On the 5th day, Queen Valara came to visit. She entered the room alone, without guards or attendants. She wore simple robes instead of her usual formal attire. For the first time, Taman saw her not as a distant, powerful ruler, but as a person. Dr. Kang, she said, inclining her head respectfully. I am told you are recovering well. Thanks to your doctors, Taman replied. He tried to stand, but she gestured for him to remain seated. Please do not stand on my account. You have given more than enough. She sat in a chair across from him. I came to inform you that Princess Isul is asking to meet you. She woke yesterday and learned what you did for her. She wishes to thank you personally. I would like that, Taman said. Valara nodded, then fell silent. She seemed to be struggling with something. Finally, she spoke again. In Althean culture, life debts are sacred. When someone saves a life, especially the life of royalty, a debt is created that must be repaid. This is not a choice. It is law, tradition, and honor all bound together. I did not do it for payment, Taman said. I know. That makes the debt even greater. Valara leaned forward. Dr. Kang, I must repay you appropriately. I have the resources of an entire empire at my disposal. Name what you want. Wealth? Your colony could become the richest human settlement in the galaxy. Land, I can grant you worlds. Technology? I can give your species advances that would take you centuries to develop on your own. Title and position? You could become an honored advisor to the Althean throne. Taman listened to her offer and he thought about it carefully. Wealth would make Hana's life easier. Technology could help humanity. A position of power could let him do even more good. But he thought about why he had come to New Busan in the first place. After the war, after losing his wife, he had wanted only peace. A simple life with his daughter. No politics, no power games, no grand ambitions. Just the quiet satisfaction of helping people in a small colony clinic. I want none of those things, he said finally. Valara's eyes widened. None of them? I want to go home to my clinic. I want to raise my daughter. I want to live a simple life. He met her gaze. Your Majesty, I did not save Princess Isolde to gain reward. I did it because it was right, because she needed help. That is all. The Queen stared at him in silence. In her long life, she had met thousands of people. Nobles who schemed for power, merchants who craved wealth, diplomats who sought influence. But here sat a human who had suffered terribly, who had risked everything and wanted nothing in return except to go back to his ordinary life. She paused. This is unprecedented. In Althean society, to refuse royal gifts is seen as an insult. Then I apologize for insulting you, Taman said, but I cannot accept payment for doing what any decent person should do. A slow smile spread across Valara's face. You truly are an unusual human, Dr. Kang. I am just a doctor, he replied. Just a doctor, she repeated. Just a doctor who did what an entire empire of advanced beings could not do. Just a doctor who endured 8 hours of agony that would have killed any of my people. Just a doctor who wants nothing in return. She stood. Very well. I will respect your wishes. But the debt remains. Whether you acknowledge it or not, I owe you a debt that can never truly be repaid. Then consider us friends, Taman said. Friends do not keep debts between them. Valara looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. Friends, she said softly. I have not had a friend in a very long time. The throne is lonely, Dr. Kang. Few dare to speak honestly to a queen. I nearly died for your daughter, Taman said with a slight smile. I think I have earned the right to speak honestly. Indeed you have. Valara moved toward the door, then paused. I have a request, if you will permit it. I would like to visit New Busan from time to time, to learn more about humans and particularly about the human who saved my daughter. Would this be acceptable? Taman hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no, to maintain the distance between his simple life and the complexity of galactic politics. But he saw something in the Queen's eyes. Not calculation or manipulation, but genuine curiosity, maybe even loneliness. You would be welcome, he said. But I warn you, life on New Busan is very boring compared to running an empire. Perhaps boring is exactly what I need, Valara replied. The next day, Taman met Princess Isolde. Hana came with him, curious to see the alien girl her father had saved. They were led to the princess's chambers, which were filled with books and strange plants that glowed softly. Princess Isolde was sitting in a chair by the window reading. When Taman entered, she jumped up and ran to him. Before anyone could react, she hugged him tightly. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. They told me what you did. They told me how much you suffered. Thank you for saving my life. Taman gently patted her shoulder. You are welcome, Princess. I am glad you are well. Isolde stepped back, wiping her eyes. I heard you have a daughter. Is this her? Hana stepped forward shyly. I am Hana. I am Isolde. The princess smiled. Would you like to see my book collection? I have stories from 20 different worlds. Hana's eyes lit up. Really? Really? Come, I will show you. And just like that, the two girls ran off together, leaving the adults to watch in bemusement. Children adapt so easily, Milor observed. They see past the differences to the similarities. Perhaps we should all be more like children, Valara said. Over the next week, as Taman continued to recover, the two girls became inseparable. They played games, shared stories, and laughed together. Taman watched them and felt a warmth in his heart. Hana had been lonely since her mother's death. It was good to see her happy again. Finally, the day came when Taman was well enough to leave. The Althean fleet had completed its repairs and would soon depart. Queen Valara arranged for Taman and Hana to be transported back to New Busan in comfort. As they prepared to leave, Isolde hugged Hana and made her promise to write letters. Valara gave Taman a small communication device. So that we may stay in contact, she explained. A friend should be able to reach a friend, yes? Yes, Taman agreed. They returned to New Busan. Life gradually returned to normal. Taman reopened his clinic. The colonists treated him like a hero, which made him uncomfortable. He was just doing his job, he insisted. But he was not quite the same man he had been before. The nightmares came sometimes, as Milor had warned. Flashes of that terrible pain. But they faded with time. And once a month the communication device would chime, and he would talk with Queen Valara. She asked him questions about human life, human culture, human philosophy. In return, she told him about the Althean Empire, its history and challenges. Against all odds, the human doctor and the alien queen were becoming genuine friends. Neither of them knew yet how much that friendship would change both their worlds. 6 months had passed since Taman saved Princess Isol's life. New Busan had settled back into its quiet routine, but small changes had begun to appear. The Althean Empire had declared the colony under special protection. Trade agreements brought prosperity. Advanced medical equipment arrived at Taman's clinic, gifts from Queen Valara that he could not refuse. "These will help you save more lives," she had said through the communication device. "Let me do this much at least." The Queen had visited 3 times in those months. Each visit caused excitement in the colony. The first time, she brought a full royal escort and formal ceremonies. The second time, she brought fewer attendants. The third time, she arrived with only a small security detail and Princess Isol. It was during that third visit that things truly began to change. Taman stood outside his home, watching as Isul and Hana ran through the colony gardens, laughing and chasing each other. The alien princess and the human girl had maintained their friendship through regular video calls, but being together in person was different. They acted like sisters. "They are good for each other," Queen Valara said. She stood beside Taman, also watching the children. She wore simple robes, not her formal attire. Out here, away from her court, she seemed more relaxed, more real. "Hana has been happier these past months," Taman admitted. "Having a friend means a lot to her, even if that friend lives halfway across the galaxy." "Isul speaks of Hana constantly," Valara said with a smile. "Hana this, Hana that. I hear more about human customs and games than I do about Althean politics lately." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the girls play. Then Valara spoke again, her voice more thoughtful. "Dr. Kang, I have a question. It may seem strange." "You can ask me anything," Taman said. "Why do humans form bonds so easily? With each other, with other species, even with creatures that cannot speak. My people are capable of love and friendship, but we are more reserved, careful. Yet you humans open your heart so readily, despite knowing you can be hurt." Taman considered the question. "Maybe because we know life is short. Humans do not live as long as Altheans. We have less time, so we cannot afford to waste it being careful with our feelings. We love quickly because we must." "Is that not terrifying?" Valara asked. "To give your heart knowing it will inevitably break?" "Yes," Taman said simply. "But a life without love would be more terrifying. I lost my wife. The pain of that loss is still with me. But I would not trade away the years I had with her to avoid that pain. The love was worth the loss." Valara looked at him with something like wonder. "You're a strange species." "We get that a lot," Taman replied with a slight smile. Over the following months, Valara's visits became more frequent. She would spend days at a time on New Busan, always with the excuse of checking on trade arrangements or security matters. But Taman noticed that she spent most of her time simply talking with him. They would sit in his small home drinking tea, discussing everything from medicine to philosophy. Valara asked him about his past, his time in the war, his wife, his hopes for Hana's future. In return, she told him about the burdens of ruling an empire, the isolation of the throne, the constant pressure of maintaining her people's honor and prosperity. "I have advisors," she said one evening. "Hundreds of them, experts in every field. But none of them speak to me the way you do. They tell me what I want to hear, or what they think I should hear. But you just tell me the truth. Is that not what you need?" Taman asked. "It is exactly what I need," Valara admitted. "But it is rare. Even my closest counselors see me as the queen first, a person second." "You see me as a person first. You are both," Taman said. "But when you are here on this distant colony, perhaps you can just be Valara for a while." She smiled at that, a genuine warmth in her expression. "Just Valara. I like the sound of that." The colony residents noticed the Queen's frequent visits and began to gossip. Director Cho approached Taman one day, nervous but curious. "Dr. Kang, forgive me for asking, but is there something between you and the Queen?" Taman blinked in surprise. "We are friends." "Just friends?" Cho pressed. "Because the entire colony is talking about how she looks at you, and how you look at her." "How do I look at her?" Taman asked, genuinely confused. "Like she is not a queen, like she is just a woman." Cho shrugged. "Maybe that is why she keeps coming back." After that conversation, Taman found himself paying more attention to his own feelings. When had Valara become more than just a person he had helped? When had her visits become the highlight of his month? When had he started looking forward to their long conversations? To her laugh? To the way she smiled when she forgot to be royal? He was falling for her, he realized. Or perhaps he had already fallen and just not noticed. But that was impossible. She was a queen, he was a simple doctor. Their worlds were too different. Valara, meanwhile, was having similar thoughts. She sat in her chambers on the royal flagship, staring at her reflection. She was over a century old, powerful and respected throughout dozens of star systems, yet she found herself thinking constantly about a human doctor who lived in a small house on an unremarkable colony. "Mother, are you all right?" Isul asked, entering the chamber. "I am fine," Valara said automatically. Then she paused. "Isul, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you like Dr. Kang?" "I love him," Isul said immediately. "He saved my life. And he is kind and funny, and he makes Hana happy. He makes you happy too." "He makes me happy?" Valara asked carefully. "Yes, you smile more when we visit New Busan. You laugh more. You seem less heavy." Isul came and sat beside her mother. "You like him too, do you not?" Valara hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I do, but it is complicated." "Why?" "Because I am the queen. I have responsibilities, expectations. The court would never accept a human as—" She stopped, realizing what she had been about to say. "As your partner?" Isul finished. "Mother, you are the queen, you make the rules. And Dr. Kang is the bravest, strongest person I have ever met. Any court that cannot see his worth is blind." "When did you become so wise?" Valara asked with a sad smile. "I learned from you," Isul said. "You taught me that true strength is not about power or technology. You said that after watching Dr. Kang endure the pain for me. You said humans might be physically weaker, but they have something we lack. Heart, determination, the ability to choose the hard path because it is right." Valara pulled her daughter close. "I did say that, did I not? So if you care about him, be brave like he was. Choose the hard path." But the hard path was getting harder. Back on the Althean homeworld, whispers were spreading through the court. The queen was spending too much time with a human. She was showing favoritism to humanity. Some nobles were openly questioning her judgment. The leader of the opposition was Lord Kethrin, an old and powerful noble who believed strongly in Althean superiority. He began to speak openly in council meetings about the queen's unhealthy fascination with an inferior species. "The queen risks her dignity and ours by associating so closely with the humans," Kethrin said during one meeting. "This Dr. Kang may have done us a service, but that does not make him our equal. We must remember our place in the galaxy." Other nobles murmured in agreement. The conservative faction was growing stronger. Valara heard about these meetings through her loyal advisors. She knew she needed to address the situation, but part of her resisted. Why should she justify finding friendship and perhaps more with someone who had proven themselves worthy in every way that mattered? But Kethrin was not finished. He began to research human history, looking for evidence to support his position, and he found plenty. Humans were a young species. They had barely left their home system. They had wars, poverty, disease. They were messy, chaotic, often violent. He compiled reports showing all of humanity's flaws and presented them to the council. "This is the species our queen admires so much," he declared. "Primitives who still fight among themselves, who destroy their own planet, who lack the discipline and honor of true civilization." Valara's jaw tightened as she read the reports. Yes, humans had flaws, but they also had beauty, creativity, resilience. They were young as a species, yes, but that meant they had room to grow. And individuals like Taman showed what humanity could become. She needed to do something, but what? How could she defend her friendship with Taman without making things worse? The answer came from an unexpected source. During her next visit to New Busan, she confided in Taman about the political troubles. "They question your judgment because of me," he said quietly. "Perhaps it would be better if we stopped these visits." "No," Valara said firmly. "I will not let fear and prejudice dictate my choices, but—" She hesitated. "Taman, I need to ask you something personal. Our friendship, has it become something more for you?" Taman met her eyes. He could lie, protect himself, maintain the safe distance. But he thought of his philosophy. Life is too short for careful hearts. "Yes," he admitted. "It has become something more." Valara's breath caught. "For me as well. But I am the queen. Any relationship I enter affects not just me, but my entire empire. If we pursue this, it will cause trouble, perhaps even political crisis. Then we do not pursue it, Taman said, though the words hurt. Your empire is more important than my feelings. Is it? Valara, the summons arrived on a quiet morning. Taman was in his clinic treating a farmer's sprained wrist when Director Cho burst through the door. His face was pale. Dr. Kang, you need to see this. It came through official Althean channels. Taman finished bandaging his patient and took the datapad from Cho. The message was written in both Althean and human languages. It was formal, coldly polite, and terrifying in its implications. Lord Kethrin, speaking for a significant faction of the Althean High Council, had invoked the ancient trial of resolution. He claimed that Queen Valara's judgment had been compromised by her association with humanity, specifically with Dr. Kang Taman. The trial would determine whether the Queen's policies regarding humanity were wise or dangerously flawed. And Taman was required to attend as a witness and representative of his species. This is bad, Cho said unnecessarily. This is very, very bad. Within hours, Earth's government contacted Taman. The conversation was tense. Politicians and diplomats appeared on his screen, their faces grave. Dr. Kang, you understand what is at stake here, Ambassador Lee said. She was Earth's chief diplomat for alien relations. This trial is not just about you and the Queen. It is about humanity's standing in galactic society. If the conservative faction wins, we could lose every advantage we have gained through our friendship with the Altheans. I understand, Taman said quietly. We are assigning you advisors, legal experts, people who can help you prepare for— No, Taman interrupted. No? Ambassador Lee looked shocked. I will not turn this into a political performance. If I stand before the Althean Council, I will speak as myself, not as a carefully prepared puppet reading scripted answers. Dr. Kang, with all respect, you are a small colony physician. You are not equipped to handle galactic politics. Perhaps that is exactly why I should handle this myself, Taman replied. If I try to be something I am not, they will see through it. Better to be honest than fake. The ambassador tried to argue, but Taman ended the call. He knew his decision would upset many people, but he had learned something from his experience with the Queen. Authenticity mattered more than perfection. That evening, Queen Valara contacted him privately. I'm so sorry, she said, and he could see real distress in her eyes. I never wanted to drag you into this. Kethrin is using you to attack me. If I withdraw my support for humanity, if I distance myself from you, he might drop the trial. And would you do that? Taman asked. Abandon what you believe to be right because of political pressure? No, Valara said firmly. But I hate that you must suffer for my choices. I made my own choices, Taman reminded her. I chose to save your daughter. I chose to be your friend. He paused, then continued. I chose to care about you. Those were my decisions. I will face the consequences. Valara's expression softened. You are braver than you know. Or more foolish. Perhaps both, she said with a sad smile. Taman, there is something you should know about the trial of resolution. It is not just debate. There will be demonstrations, tests. Kethrin will try to prove that humans are inferior, that my judgment in supporting you was emotional rather than logical. What kind of tests? I do not know yet. The challenger sets the terms. But knowing Kethrin, he will choose something designed to humiliate. She leaned closer to the screen. Please be careful. He is dangerous when he feels his worldview is threatened. I will be careful, Taman promised. But I will also be honest. That is all I know how to be. The next 3 weeks were chaotic. Taman had to arrange care for his patients and for Hana. Princess Isolde had insisted that Hana stay on the royal flagship during the trial, and Valara had agreed. The two girls would be safe together. News of the trial spread throughout human space. Taman found himself suddenly famous, his face on every news channel. Some called him a hero. Others called him a fool who had gotten too close to powers he did not understand. Papa, are you scared? Hana asked the night before they were to leave for the Althean homeworld. Yes, Taman admitted. He never lied to his daughter. But you are going anyway. Yes. Because it is right. Because it is necessary, Taman corrected. I am not sure it is right. I am not a politician or a diplomat. I am just a doctor. But someone has to stand up and represent what I know to be true, that humans and Altheans can learn from each other, that we are different but not lesser. Hana hugged him tightly. You will do good, Papa. I know you will. The royal flagship arrived at the Althean homeworld 3 days later. Taman stood at the viewport staring at the planet below. It was beautiful, covered in silver cities and vast green forests. This world had been home to an advanced civilization for thousands of years, and he, a human from a backwater colony, was about to stand before its ruling council. The absurdity of it almost made him laugh. The Althean homeworld was overwhelming. The capital city stretched as far as Taman could see, buildings that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being constructed. Flying vehicles moved in perfect patterns through the air. Citizens moved with natural grace, their psionic abilities allowing them to sense each other and avoid collisions. Taman felt very much out of place. Queen Valara provided him with quarters in the palace. They were luxurious beyond anything he had experienced. But he found no comfort in silk sheets and hovering lights. His mind was focused on the coming trial. Lord Kethrin requested a meeting before the trial began. Valara advised against it, but Taman agreed. He wanted to understand his opponent. They met in a neutral room in the palace. Lord Kethrin was tall even by Althean standards, with white hair and cold blue eyes. He looked at Taman the way someone might look at an interesting insect. Dr. Kang, Kethrin said, his tone polite but distant. I wanted to speak with you before the trial, to make sure you understand what is happening here. I understand that you believe humans are inferior, Taman said directly, and that you think the Queen's friendship with me is a mistake. Not just a mistake, a danger. Kethrin sat down, gesturing for Taman to do the same. You seem like a decent person, Doctor. You saved Princess Isolde, that was admirable. But one act of courage does not change what your species is. Young, violent, chaotic, technologically backward. All true, Taman agreed. But we are also adaptable, creative, and determined. We learn quickly. We overcome obstacles that would stop others. Because you do not know any better, Kethrin said dismissively. A child can be brave because it does not understand danger. That does not make the child wise. Is that how you see us? As children? As children with weapons, Kethrin corrected. Children who will eventually pose a threat if they are encouraged too much. The Queen does not see this because her gratitude has clouded her judgment. That is what this trial will prove. Taman studied the older Althean. What do you want from me? To withdraw? To admit that I am inferior? I want you to be honest, Kethrin said. When I demonstrate your species' limitations, do not pretend otherwise. Accept the truth. That is all I ask. I am always honest, Taman replied. But I do not think we will agree on what truth is. Kethrin smiled, a cold expression. Then we shall let the trial decide. The day of the trial arrived. The council chamber was enormous, with seats for hundreds of nobles and officials. At the center was a raised platform where the arguments would be made. Taman stood there in simple clothes, refusing the formal attire that had been offered. He would face this as himself. Queen Valara sat on her throne, elevated above the council floor. Her face was composed, but Taman could see the tension in her shoulders. Lord Kethrin stood on the opposite side of the platform, surrounded by his supporters. He began the trial with a formal speech about tradition, honor, and the importance of maintaining Althean standards. Then he turned to Taman. Dr. Kang, you claim to represent humanity's potential, so let us test that claim. I propose a simple demonstration. We will use the neural crown again. But this time, instead of healing, we will test endurance alone. Pure psionic pain, no purpose beyond the suffering. Any Althean volunteer who wishes may attempt to endure this test. And then you, Dr. Kang, will attempt it as well. A murmur ran through the council. This was clever and cruel. Kethrin was betting that no Althean could endure such pointless suffering, but neither could Taman. It would prove that his previous achievement was driven by necessity, not by any inherent human superiority. Do you accept this demonstration? Kethrin asked. Taman looked at Queen Valara. She gave the slightest shake of her head. This was a trap. He should refuse. But if he refused, Kethrin would claim he was afraid. That his earlier achievement was luck. Taman thought of everything that had led to this moment. He thought of Princess Isolde, healthy and happy. He thought of Hana believing in her father. He thought of all the humans across the galaxy who needed their species to be taken seriously. I accept, he said. The council chamber erupted in surprise and debate. Valara closed her eyes, knowing what was about to happen, and Lord Kethrin smiled his cold smile, certain of victory. The demonstration would take place immediately. Lord Kethrin wanted no time for preparation or for minds to change. The council chamber was rearranged, medical equipment brought in. The neural crown sat on a table, its crystals glowing softly, waiting. "The test is simple," Kethrin announced to the assembled council. "The neural crown will generate psionic pain, the same type Dr. Kang experienced when healing Princess Isul. But there will be no patient, no purpose, just pain. Volunteers will attempt to endure for as long as possible. Then the human will attempt it. We will see if his previous achievement was truly remarkable, or merely the desperation of a creature too primitive to know when to quit." The first volunteer was a young warrior, proud and strong. He sat in the chair and the crown was placed on his head. The test began. He lasted 4 minutes and 30 seconds before his body collapsed unconscious. Medical staff revived him quickly. He was unharmed but shaken. 4.5 minutes, Kethrin announced. "Respectable. Next volunteer." One by one Altheans tried. A senior diplomat lasted 5 minutes. A military commander lasted 6. An experienced psionic healer, using techniques to distribute the pain, lasted 7 minutes and 15 seconds before screaming and tearing the crown from his head. 7 minutes, Kethrin said, looking at Taman. "That is the best my people can achieve in a controlled environment. And you, Dr. Kang, you endured 8 hours. But that was with purpose, with the life of a child hanging in the balance. Can you do it now with nothing at stake but pride?" Taman walked to the chair. His legs felt heavy. He remembered the pain from before, the terrible, endless pain. Could he face it again, without the motivation of saving a life? But he thought about what Kethrin had said, about humans being children with weapons, about his species being too primitive to matter, and he thought about Valara, risking her political position because she believed humans had value. Someone had to prove her right. "How long do you want me to endure?" Taman asked, sitting in the chair. Kethrin smiled. "Let us say 1 hour. If a primitive human can match or exceed what our best warriors achieved, multiplied by 8, then perhaps there is something to the Queen's position after all." An hour. Taman's mouth went dry. The longest Althean had lasted 7 minutes. Kethrin was asking him to do more than 8 times that. 1 hour, Taman agreed. Queen Valara stood abruptly. "This is madness. Dr. Kang has already proven himself. There is no need. The trial requires demonstration," Kethrin interrupted smoothly. "Unless your Majesty wishes to concede the point?" Valara's jaw tightened. They both knew she could not concede. Too much was at stake. Taman looked up at her and smiled slightly. "It is all right, Your Majesty. I can do this. You do not have to," she said quietly. "Yes, I do." The neural crown was placed on his head. Taman took a deep breath, then another. He thought of Hana. He thought of his wife. He thought of every patient he had ever saved, every soldier he had kept alive during the war. "Begin," Kethrin ordered. Pain crashed into Taman like a physical force. It was exactly as terrible as he remembered. Fire in his nerves, pressure in his skull, his body screaming that something was horribly wrong. He gripped the armrests of the chair until his knuckles turned white. But he did not scream. He breathed through it, focusing on each breath, in, out, in, out. 5 minutes passed. The council watched in silence. The Altheans had expected the human to collapse quickly, but he sat there, trembling but conscious. 10 minutes. Taman's vision blurred. Blood vessels burst in his eyes again, but still he endured. 15 minutes, 20. The council began to whisper among themselves. How was this possible? Lord Kethrin's confident expression began to crack. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak. Primitive, they lacked the Altheans' psionic discipline. Yet here sat proof that discipline was not everything. 30 minutes. Halfway there. Taman's body was failing, but his mind remained focused. He had learned something during those 8 hours saving Princess Isul. Pain was just signals in the brain. Terrible signals, yes, but they could not kill him as long as his heart kept beating, and his heart was stubborn. He thought about his daughter. How proud she would be. How she believed in him absolutely. He could not fail her. 40 minutes. The younger council members were watching in awe now. Even some of Kethrin's supporters looked uncertain. Queen Valara sat perfectly still, her hands clenched in her lap. She wanted to stop this, to save Taman from suffering, but she knew he would refuse. This was his choice. His fight. 50 minutes. Taman was beyond pain now. He had transcended it somehow, existing in a strange place between consciousness and something else. His body was a distant thing, suffering far away. His mind floated, focused on a single point. Endure. 55 minutes, someone announced. 5 more minutes, just 5. Taman thought of the moment he had decided to become a doctor. He was 15 years old, watching paramedics save his neighbor's life after an accident. He had thought then, I want to be someone who helps, someone who makes things better. Everything he had done since then had been in service of that goal. The war, his clinic, saving his soul. And now this, proving that his species deserved respect. 59 minutes. 1 more minute. Just 60 more seconds. He counted them. Each second was a lifetime. Each heartbeat was a victory. 1 hour, the timekeeper announced. The pain stopped instantly as the crown was deactivated. Taman slumped forward, gasping. Medical staff rushed to him, but he waved them away. Slowly, shakily, he stood up. He looked at Lord Kethrin. The old Althean's face had gone completely blank with shock. You wanted me to be honest, Taman said, his voice hoarse. Here is honesty. Yes, humans are young. Yes, we lack your technology and your psionic gifts. Yes, we are messy and chaotic. But we have something you have forgotten. We know how to suffer and keep going. We know how to face the impossible and do it anyway. Not because we do not understand danger, but because we understand that some things are worth any cost. He turned to address the full council, speaking louder now. You call us primitive. Maybe we are. But we are also the species that will endure when others would quit. We are the species that makes friends across the stars because we believe in connection. We are the species that saved your princess when you could not. Do not mistake youth for weakness. And do not mistake different strengths for no strength at all. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Then slowly Queen Valara began to clap. It was a human gesture, one she had learned from Taman. One by one, other council members joined her. Even some of Kethrin's supporters applauded. Lord Kethrin stood alone in his silence, his worldview shattered by a simple doctor from a backwater colony. The vote came 3 days later, after much debate and discussion. The council ruled in favor of Queen Valara. Her policies toward humanity would continue and expand. Humans would be granted full recognition as an advanced species, not in technology, but in the ways that truly mattered. Cultural exchange programs would begin. Trade would increase. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. But there was something more that came from the trial. On the last day before Taman was to return to New Busan, Queen Valara summoned him to her private chambers. They were alone, no attendants or guards. You changed the council's mind, she said. You changed many minds, including some I thought would never change. I just told the truth, T.